Welcome to our live stream today, and we're excited to have with us Norm Williams, who's one of our Noblesville First members. I've gotten to know Norm very well as we've worked together for the Martin Luther King celebration the past 3 years. He's done some great work with that. He's also communicated with some groups in our church trying to help explain the racism that he experienced growing up and still sees around us in this world. And this week, he's also had some very significant conversations with the mayor and our new Noblesville safety director, so we're excited to have him with us. I think he'll share a unique perspective that we all need to hear. So Norm, we've seen an incredible outcry in the past few weeks across our country. The result has been peaceful demonstrations and sometimes violent riots. For those of us who tend to decry and hate to see that violence, what would you want to say that might help us understand the anger and the frustration that we're seeing displayed throughout our country?
I think a lot of it is really just emotions boiling over. I think for a long time, people haven't really paid attention to what was going on, or it didn't affect them. And I think people are seeing it more with video cameras, cell phones, and everything else. I think you look, it was 1991 when Rodney King had the incident that was kind of shown on tape. And for years, black people had said, hey, this is what's happening. That was the first time it was seen. And I think it was still dismissed as a one-off. And I think even over the past 5-10 years, you've seen more and more incidents, but it's always been well, he should have, or if he wouldn't have done this, or what about this, or we didn't see the whole video. And I think this was the first time that people actually saw everything and really saw a blatant disregard. And I think you look also, I think the COVID had a lot to do with it, because I think people are home. They are emotional anyway because of being staying there. So then when they see that happening, then they're starting to get that feeling. We see what people are talking about. But I think the fact that we saw George Floyd's life taken away from him the way that it was, and how everything happened, and it happened right there, and the people sitting around and watched, it just really kind of came to a head.
Very good. Now, those who are watching, I've got a few more questions, but please feel free to post some questions on Facebook, and we'll add those to our conversation, so please feel comfortable doing that. Well, you've been part of some conversations been taking place this week, significant conversations. It all began with a phone call to Mindy Mays, the pastor of Bethel AME. That led us to Noblesville Diversity Coalition, and since that time, the Noblesville schools have got involved. Safety Director Chad Knight's been involved. And you've been carrying on these discussions, and it all culminated in the decision that we need to do more than just have these behind-the-scenes conversations, that we need to do something public. So today, we'll be participating, you and I and Pastor Aaron, as well as others, in the Noblesville Peaceful Protest for Black Lives. What do you hope will be accomplished by that?
I think a couple things. I think, raising my family here in Noblesville, it's been a welcoming community. And I think it's an understanding. I think Hamilton County and Noblesville, more specifically, has had a history, and people kind of think certain negative things about black people being in the community. So I want to, at least from my side, say, it is a welcoming community, but I also want there to be a voice. I think it's one of those things where people want to have a voice and explain what's going on and show, whether it's the mayor, whether it's the Chad, I can never remember
Chad Knight?
Yeah, I can never remember what his title is, and just show everybody that they're here and that we're here and that it's time for things to change. But a lot of it is just having those difficult conversations. I think people are having them now, and it's just a way to say, okay, we're all in this together. As African Americans, we've always wanted the support, because I think that's where it comes from, and just saying, okay, it's time for some changes to happen. And I think just showing the support and showing the community and showing everyone outside of Noblesville just how much the community can come together.
Well, Norm, I grew up in a family that believed all persons should be accepted regardless of skin color. So I never considered myself a racist. The past few years, I've started to do more reading, so I've gotten a greater understanding of how slavery has still impacted what we're seeing right now today. We're not that far removed from slavery, especially from segregation. But I tell you, this week, I feel like I'm getting a crash course in systemic racism, and I feel like I've learned so much, and I still feel very humbled that I've got a lot more to learn. Would you try to help explain what systemic racism is for people that are like me trying to learn about this?
Sure. I think you hit it on the head. I think a lot of people think, okay, slavery was over in 1865 with the Emancipation Proclamation. And, you know, a lot of conversations about race as well. I didn't own slaves. That's true, but I think a lot of people don't understand that there's the gap between what's happened between where we are 2020 and 1865 hasn't been that long. You know, 1865 was the Emancipation Proclamation. Then you had the Civil Rights Act of 1965. Well, the Fair Rights Voting Act doesn't until 1968. And when you think about it, that's only 13 presidential elections since this one. So there's been a lot of things that have happened, whether it's Jim Crow laws, redlining, a lot of things that were put on top of slavery and put on top of black people to be able to keep them suppressed. And so to get over that hump and to get to where we are, you know, that hasn't been that long. And so I think learning about that, you know, teachers can only teach so much, but learning about all those different things, that kind of helps figure out what's going on. You know, it's not, you know, black people are lazy or don't want to work. There are a lot of things that have been put in place historically. I think the second thing is, you know, I was reading something the other day, and they talked about most people, a lot of things don't affect a lot of people because of how you're growing up. And, you know, you grow up in an all-white community, you have a white dentist, you have a white principal, white teachers, you have, most of your friends are white, and then you go to college that's predominantly white. You come out, you're gonna go live in a community that's familiar to you. And so you're never really around anyone who unless you have to be, and you rarely do white people have to be around black people because you can kind of pick and choose where you live. And so then that happens, and then you get married, you have kids, they live in a community that's predominantly white. And so it's not really intentional, but it's just a comfort level. And so it's making sure that you experience and get outside of yourself and experience different, you know, religions, colors, everything else to just understand how people think and who people are. So I think a lot of it's not conscious, it's not vindictive, but if you don't know any black people to have conversations with, you're not gonna know some of their experiences. And so it's not, hey, I'm racist because I don't like black people, it's I'm racist because I don't really know. I don't have that experience except for maybe, you know, somebody I work with, or, you know, something that I see happening once in a while on TV when, you know, someone gets shot or something happens. Well, that's a one-off. How often does it really happen? It happens a lot more than you think, but you have to be able to have those conversations and be in proximity to someone.
And hence, that's why we've got the Noblesville Diversity Coalition, trying to foster that diversity and provide those kind of experiences for us to be around. Let me ask one more question, then we'll start turning to those that the congregation has provided. I know you're involved in some significant conversations with the mayor. You shared a little bit of that with me and with Safety Director Chad Knight. You comfortable sharing a little bit about
Sure.
what they're telling you and what we hope will come out of all these conversations?
I think a lot of it is just, again, understanding how what they do from a policing standpoint, how they interact with people of color, and understanding even just the perception of different things. So a lot of it is, you know, body cameras. They're talking about doing a lot of things proactively, and that's a lot of the conversations that we're having is how they interact and how they position themselves. I think one of the big things we were talking with Chad was even when you see some of the protests, the kids held a protest rally, Wednesday, and I was down with my kids on Saturday, and you saw the police presence, but they weren't overly present. It wasn't a very aggressive presence. It's being aware and kind of understanding how that interaction works on both sides. You know, if you come to me as an officer and we're having a conversation, it's a lot different than an aggressive posture, and it kind of puts me back. And just understanding that we're in it together, and being able to reach out. I think it's huge that they're working with the Diversity Coalition. They're working with different groups, saying, hey, how can we do things better? One of the big things is they're doing some training. I think I forget, but it's like they've done 8 hours, and each year their officers are doing some racial sensitivity training, which is huge. And it's, again, being proactive and understanding the situation.
I know some of the conversations I've had, I've been very impressed with Chad Knight, our
Yep.
new safety director. He comes to us from Indianapolis, and I think he brings some experiences that's going to be a benefit to our community.
Oh, I agree.
So let me turn to one of the questions we have up here. It says, how do we change the hearts of those who believe whites were meant to be in charge? Oh, good luck with that one.
I don't necessarily know if you do. I think that, you know, I think sometimes you got to know where you are. I think it's not about changing their hearts. I think Presley, who was here before, there's a generation coming up. There's people my age coming up who are going to have more of an effect and a difference. I think some people you can change, some people can't. I think, and I'll be honest, you know, being an interracial family, you know, a lot of the dialogues and conversations that we have changed opinions on from both families. Being able to say, okay, you know, understanding things differently. So I think that's a lot of it. But I think there are people who are just going to believe.
So
they
racing
are.
can go both ways.
Yeah, I think people believe what they believe, and you know, when you're a certain age, you're not going to change who you are, and that just is what it is. But I think we're at a time now where there are people who are ready to have these conversations. And I think those are the people you talk to, and at some point, those voices will drown out the other voices.
Very good. Any more questions? Looks like not. Well, let me then give you another invite today at 2 o'clock. We'll be gathering at Federal Hill Commons. And we're calling it a peaceful protest for Black lives. I think probably even better description is that this is a civil discourse that we need to take seriously, the issues of Black lives, and we hope that you'll join us. And we think we've got about a 40-minute program. Who knows what'll happen, but we're emphasizing we want to keep this peaceful. We want this to be respectful, and we look forward to the unity, and we will be practicing safe social distancing. So bring a mask. We'll try to keep people apart. I know that Riverview Hospital as well as Walmart are bringing water for us, so hopefully, a beautiful day. We'll have a great time today. Thank you very much for joining us today.